Hello, and welcome to another episode of Baka Breakdown with your hosts Troy and Jason. This is the show where we like to take our favorite anime scenes, break them down, deconstruct them, and kind of see what's inside. Uh, Today, we're going to be taking a closer look at one of my favorites, along with Troy's My Hero Academia. It's going to be the fight between Deku and Muscular. And as always, spoilers ahead. This week we decided to kind of go back in time a little bit. Uh, Kind of a selfish one because I love this anime, but this particular fight in general, I felt was really pivotal for Deku's character. I specifically wanted to pick Troy's brain in part about this because not only does he know a lot more about this anime, but I think he's seen this scene quite a few more times than me. And specifically, I wanted to talk about, again, the theme of what this particular fight, the pivotal moment in Midoriya's growth as a character.
I mean, there's so much I could say. I gotta admit, this is actually my favorite fight in all of My Hero Academia. Uh, I know All Might versus All for One is a better technical fight, and it's got all the better things. But this one has a personal place in my heart, and I just absolutely love it. And for me, this is Midoriya versus something that negates his power, which is something that shows up a lot in superhero stories. And it shows that his power alone is not what's going to save people. It's not the superpower he has achieved and is sculpting and trained. That's not what it takes to save people. And he showed this by putting up a villain that just negates his power completely.
Not just that, but I've noticed a couple times in this particular fight, he's not interested in himself, and that's kind of Deku, right? He's always selfless. He's always trying to be the ideal hero. But this particular scene seems more self-deprecation than it does humility. And the reason I say that is because there's a couple times where he just hurts himself, or he's giving up, or he's ready to die. Um, Not so much like, half of it is to save the water hose boy, but also like the other half is I'm not going to beat this guy, so I just have to get him to a point that the kid can get away, or I'm not uh I'm not going to live up to the hero that I want to be, that's in my head. Or at least that's what I got out of a couple of these really somber moments.
Yeah, Deku is a character who's always been willing to sacrifice himself. We've seen that, with the slime monster attacking Bakugo back in season one. He ran in, no powers, started grabbing at the slime monster, no thought of himself. And that is his personal motivation for everything he does, is to save people. There's an interesting point brought up later in season three that that's not enough to be a hero, but here we see that in full force. And like I said, in this case, it's really showing that it's not the super strength that he has inside him that's what is capable of doing that. That it takes a little bit more.
Well, there's a part where he's got All Might in his head saying a true hero can always get out of a tough spot. And then he starts apologizing as if he's giving up, as if he can't live up to that ideal that he's trying to hold himself to. And I almost saw this fight as Midoriya versus Midoriya.
Right, like you said, he gives in, and actually the scene does a really beautiful thing with the art where you see the muscles completely surround him. He's pushed all the way into the ground. He disappears, and we cut to blackness. It's death, and that it's only when he's reminded that the person he's trying to save is still in danger that that's reversed.
So, and speaking of the kid, what do you think? What do you think this battle is telling him? Because he's not in Midoriya's head. He doesn't know the internal struggles he's going through. In fact, when Midoriya first goes up there, he's resistant to even trusting him, let alone going with him.
Right, and we see it's told to us directly in the episode title. The episode title is called My Hero. Um, this is a boy who hates superheroes because his parents doing superhero work are dead. He blames superhero culture and all that for that, and then Deku is showing him why his parents would make that kind of choice. You know what's at stake with heroes doing their jobs, which is a really beautiful way to tie in that character arc.
Yeah, I like that. He definitely thought heroes were selfish and had no interest in actually helping people, but for the show of it. And I think earlier in the episode, one of the cat ladies tells him that you're gonna run across someone that wants to save you just to save you. And I think that's what kind of flips this kid, because he's like, why? Why are you going through all this effort and pain and torture for me? Like, you don't even know me. We just met. Of course, that's Midoriya, but I liked how that framed. You don't get a lot of that kind of storytelling from the victim of these fights. So that was a really nice touch that they put in this particular scene.
Another great thing that I absolutely love about this scene, we're seeing it from the perspective of Midoriya. We get his normal, mental process as he's trying to figure out the fight. But as it goes along, he gets more aggressive. He gets insulty. He starts talking trash. And there's another character that acts like it, and it's not All Might. It's Bakugo. Midoriya, when he's pushed to the edge, becomes more like Bakugo than he does like All Might. And this is one of the first times we really see that go to a little. We saw a little bit in season 2 with the tournament arc, in the big battle there. But here we see him like telling him to shut up. Who tells everyone to shut up? It's interesting that they bring that analysis that Bakugo is a foundation of who Midoriya is too.
It's nice that you brought that up, because normally, especially when Deku's in tough situations, he can usually come up with decent strategies or inventive ways to get himself out of it. But here he is. He's got the kid behind him. He's got two broken arms, or at least one broken arm and like a disabled one. His back is to a cliff. And he specifically calls out, I need time to think. How do you think that played into like his instinct of how to fight?
I think it definitely changes the fight, because Midoriya's two things are, he can summon super strength and he's able to study combat really quickly and come up with plans. This villain is taking away both his ability to think on the fly, and he's overpowering him with strength, leaving Deku with almost none of the resources he relies on. He's literally pushed to his limits in this battle in both senses. When he does finally come up with a plan, it quickly backfires on him. He has to find other ways to win this fight beyond everything he's used in the past. He's always had a plan. He's always known his limits. And in this fight, limits are going to have to be broken.
Right. The music to this particular scene was absolutely gorgeous. And I loved all the, like, it wasn't this like a panned out scene where they like went at each other back and forth. It was a lot of close in shots. It was a lot less about the choreography and more about just the raw power of these two characters duking it out. I thought that was a really good choice for the dire situation Deku finds himself in.
Deku also has one of my favorite lines in the entire series at the beginning of this fight when he's getting ready, and he calls out, I need to remember how far I've come. That's something I've used, a quote I've told myself in my own life ever since I've heard it, that, if things get tough, I need to remember that I didn't start here yesterday. I've anybody has overcome many struggles, and, this is just the next struggle you have to overcome. I find that so inspiring, and it really plays into this fight, which is now the biggest hurdle he's ever faced, but it's everything he's done before that makes it possible to win.
You know what this called back for me? The fight with All Might versus Nomu. When he's hitting him and hitting him and hitting him, nothing's happening. and finally he decides, like, he's at his breaking point. He's about to de-transform, and he reaches deep inside. And you know, even that whole star animation goes, and you know, he has to go beyond, and that's exactly what Deku had to do here. He's literally on the brink of death. Water hose kid fires the water, and even Muscular calls it out. He's like, "Oh no, I was distracted for an instant. That's all he needed." And then he 1,000,000%, which I found odd, but what an inspiring scene, right?
Yeah, as I've had to tell Jeremy, that's not a mathematical equation. The writers even confirmed it's literally just Deku doing hyperbole to pump himself up. When he calls that out, I do love that. You know, he has to push past his limits, like you called out. He's mimicking All Might in that Nomu fight. He really is. But that just like for All Might, there are consequences for doing that. And we see that a lot in My Hero Academia, that is the cost of being a hero. You have to push past your limits, and then you have to accept the cost of what you're paying to do that. Deku's arms are no longer fully functional for fighting after this fight.
I was really impressed that the writers decided to make that decision, that there were real consequences for winning a fight. And I thought it was a brilliant move. And even for the rest of this arc, like, he's on someone's back and his arms are just dangling because he can't use them, literally. And he's just so out of energy. But man, was this a good fight, because it told so much with punching. Punching and kicking.
There also is some really nice foreshadowing in this. At the end of season 3, I hope I'm not spoiling too much for those who haven't seen it, All Might tells Deku there's 2 things you need to be the number 1 hero, and Deku has only one of them, and it's the desire to save people, and we see that put on full display here. But what he's lacking that actually helps him win this fight is the desire to be the best. You have to be competitive and want to beat everyone. And it isn't until Deku gets really mad that this fight's winnable. So I think that shows a nice little foreshadowing of what Deku's lacking, and that it is possible for him to achieve it.
I love this anime, and I know Troy does too. And if you haven't watched it, you definitely need to, because it's definitely worth taking a look. So thanks again going on this ride of Baka Breakdown. If you've been following our main podcast, we're currently watching That Time I Reincarnated as a Slime.
You should really watch the anime that we watch, which was That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, episodes 1 through 13. We will be watching the first part, and then after that, the podcast after, we'll be watching the rest of the series.
Perfect. I hope you enjoyed this Baka Breakdown, and if you did, we'd love to have you, so please feel free to subscribe and throw us a like. Also, we hope to see you over at our main podcast, and hope you enjoyed the show. Troy, let's say goodbye.
Sayonara.
Thanks for listening.